When the Germans were almost defeated in February of 1945, the Big Three, Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill, had the Yalta Conference to discuss about the future of European countries. Stalin said that he was the one that suffered the most during the war, although he knew that most of his people was in most of the European countries. He agreed with Roosevelt and Churchill that the Eastern Europe had to be seen as a Soviet sphere of influence, as Stalin was afraid of a new threat of the Europeans. But the real disagreement was about Poland. Stalin wanted the border of USSR to move westwards into Poland. Stalin said that in turn Poland could move their border towards the German territory. Churchill did not approve these plans, but he also knew that there's not much he could do about it because Stalin's Red Army was in total control of both Poland and Germany territory. Roosevelt was also unhappy with this decision, but Churchill persuaded him to accept it. In 1947, communists joined a coalition government on Poland and forced the non-communists to expel.
Solidarity was a social movement, and it was an anti-authoritarian movement. This meant that this movement wasn't with the government and was more about personal values and personal freedom. They did this using a civil resistance method in order to make different protests. Why did they do this? They do this because at the moment, around 1980s, Poland was controlled by the communist power. At that time, the communist power had increased the prices of the food, but not the wages. So with that, a lot of people got angry about this because they couldn't pay for what they normally could pay as the increase of prices in the food. Now, with the wages that are staying the same, the amount of food that they could buy was a lot less. A lot may argue too that the communists, as they were in power, Poland wanted to take them down.
In the late 1970s, Poland hit an economic crisis. May say it was the worst year for industry since communism started. In 1980, the government announced the increase of price of meat. So a month later, 21 demands were made, including free trade unions and the right to strike. This is when free trade unions solidarity was made. On August 30, they agreed to the whole 21 demands. A month later, on September, they reached 3.5 million members. On October, 7 million. On October, 7 million, by which time they were officially recognized by the government. On January of 1981, they finally reached 9.4 million members.
Lech Wałęsa was born in 1943. His first work was at the GPRs in Gdansk, but he was kicked out because of the mean comments he made about the bad climate and organization it was at work. In 1978, he worked at an art factory helping to organize a union, but he was dismissed. In 1979, he worked in electromontage. He was the best automotive electrician, but he abandoned it. With some people, in August of 1980, he was elected to Solidarity, and he was the leader. In 1999, after the Second World War, he became the leader of Poland's first non-communist government.
The reasons for success were that, for example, they had the support of the church. In that moment, they were a big supporter. Also, they were really famous in industries like shipbuilding, and if many workers were on strike, that would devastate Poland's economy. Also, the Soviet Union was focused on the West. That would mean that if the West didn't get involved in this situation, they wouldn't either. Also, he was Lech Wałęsa, which was like the founder or like the one that was like directing it, like Solidarity. He wouldn't get involved with the Soviet Union. He would just negotiate it really good with the government, but didn't get involved in any Soviet Union problems. Also, they didn't see the Solidarity as an alternative to the Communist Party. Later on, they did, and they saw that 30% of the Communist Party joined Solidarity. Also, the government expected that this movement would separate into rival fractions.
In February of 1981, the prime minister quit his job, and so Jaruzelski, which was the leader of the army, took over. Because of this, everyone thought that the Soviet Union would send tanks. Now, Solidarity had an open letter which says that they were fighting for their freedom.
Walesa, the leader of Solidarity, and Harulski, then the prime minister and the leader of the army, sit down to negotiate. They both negotiated that they would have a government where both have an agreement. Obviously, this didn't last long, and after 9 months of tension relationships, communism attacked. The Red Army was called to train maneuvers and on the Polish border.
Later, Jaruzelski introduced martial law. This meant that any military soldati could kill or put the opposition in prison without any prior judgment. When this mandatory was in process, Jaruzelski put Wałęsa in prison and he put 10,000 people more.
The reasons for crushing Solidarity were that Solidarity was acting more like a political party instead of a trade union as it was started off. The threats of Communist Party by its magnitude, and also Poland was falling, making people have food shortages, increases of wage and unemployment, and Solidarity was being harsh on communist parties looking for its crack under pressure. Later on, in December 1981, communists regained control of Poland. The effects of this were that Poles lost all confidence on communists, and only force and military was efficient to crush Solidarity.
Solidarity was so significant because it would only benefit the high class, not the low class or the mid class. It highlighted communism corruption. There was an incontent everywhere. For example, there's a report published in 1981 from Poland called Experience in Future that expressed how ordinary people, which meant non-members of the Communist Party, lived in inequality and injustice, which meant lack of supplies, of hospitality, and the partially imposing of tariffs and restrictions entering certain places. People could resist the communism, and communism conveyed and threatened people that had power, bigger people, which meant bigger people mean people in the high class, not people in the low class or the mid class.